Also working with the OECD LEAD programme, we've begun to look at the role of development agencies, development companies, corporate boards and other kinds of partnership arrangements in local and regional economic development. This is important because there are now probably more than 25 or 30,000 such organisations around the world, and they've become a common choice of local or regional government when it thinks about how to play its role in the economy. It often creates these new kinds of developmental organisations. So the first question we've tried to answer is, why do local and regional governments do this, and what are the perceived advantages? Well, to understand that, I think we need to observe that long-term development, economic development, the attraction of external investment is rather different to the other things that local and regional governments do. It involves acting within markets. It involves something that's long-term, usually takes a broader geography than a local or regional government normally would, and involves engaging in contested space where market-based mechanisms decide what the outcomes are, rather than public policy mechanisms per se. For these reasons, local and regional governments have tended to decide that they need a separate organisation which is able to be business-facing or market-facing or investor-facing. It's able to manage calculated risks. It's able to engage in a slightly different set of practices from the normal practices of government. These practices involve complex project management, financial innovation and joint ventures, involves asset management, often involves marketing and sales type activity, involves campaigning, bidding to win certain rights to do things. These are skill sets of engineering, advertising, corporate finance that don't always exist within local and regional governments. And therefore, one of the purposes of development agencies is to create, as it were, an ancillary employer, part of the local and regional government, but organised as a business with a corporate board, so that it can mirror the practices of business and other market-based partners, and at the same time it can attract the skills and the human capital that wouldn't necessarily be attracted to work with the local and regional government. So that's really the first big observation. That's why local and regional governments do this. The second question has been, what do they perceive to be the value added of development agencies? Well, what we've been able to observe is that development agencies, because they're structured as slightly independent organisations, can bring into partnership or into collaboration perhaps a broader range of organisations than would otherwise be possible, including financial institutions, large and small companies, universities and others, whatever is required, bringing together new kinds of partnerships that wouldn't be possible in the same way within the local government structure. The second thing is that they've been able to really inject some pace and some scale into the development activities, as it were, trying to capture opportunities and momentum, trying to create things that are large enough to attract external investors. Then they've also become very good at problem solving, particularly the problem solving that involves better coordination within the public sector. Development agencies have been able to provide concierge services on the one hand, and then also complex project management services on the other. Overall, development agencies have been seen, therefore, to add a different kind of dynamic to the development functions of a city or region, and have therefore been seen as very attractive. Now, the third question that we've tried to answer is, as it were, what are the key insights about what makes a development agency work or not? And really there's 2 or 3 points to make here. The first one is that development agencies always go through challenging periods. The habit of creating these companies with the development brief, albeit within a governmental system, is not without its tensions, and sometimes the public become very curious, if not sceptical, about the work of development agencies. Occasionally politicians are concerned that they don't seem to be as accountable as they need to be. Sometimes the private sector perceives the development agency actually to be a competitor for the development of a parcel of land or for bringing forward a proposition. So these things can occur. But what has seemed to be very important is firstly for development agencies to be very communicative and to figure out very quickly what system of accountability is going to work, both for them as a corporate organisation but also for the wider political and civic culture in which they work. And secondly, it's important for them to constantly review what they're doing. Something that may appear as a market failure at one time may within 2 or 3 years of action being taken no longer be a market failure, and there may be opportunities for business to engage there. So staying refreshed, reviewing regularly, being accountable and being highly communicative are very important things. But the second big insight has been that development agencies really don't work on their own. Local and regional economic development is produced really by a system of organisations in which some are responsible for things like the business, the investment climate and the economic infrastructure. Others, like development agencies, are responsible for the sector strategies, the urban regeneration approaches, the specific economic development projects and programmes. And then other organisations still are responsible for what we might call the economic inclusion. The human capital, the skills, helping to make people employable, the procurement processes that bring small and medium companies into a growing economy. So in other words, development agencies are very good at leading the economic development piece, but they need other organisations to be good at focusing on the economic growth activities, the climate, the infrastructure and everything else, and they need other organisations to do a very good job on the economic inclusion piece, particularly in relation to employment and supply chains and others. So our overall observation is that when one is thinking about creating a development agency or improving its performance, some of the attention also needs to be paid to the performance of the local or regional economic development system. That family of organisations that are responsible for other aspects of the economic agenda of a city or a region, and getting them to work coherently with a common agenda, a shared sense of what success looks like, and a shared sense of the value of cooperation is absolutely essential to creating an environment in which a development agency can succeed.